stream, and welcome to the sixth R6ANZ podcast. This is the first ANZ podcast where we've had all of our guests be not from ANZ. So we've got Emzo.
Hello.
And Cabbagest.eiNs.
Sorry, I'm the only guy who doesn't have boot camps. We can imagine.
Yeah, well, we got the nice picture there. We can make do with that.
Right.
So, we've got so much to talk about this week with so much been going on, and we still haven't had like a proper debrief about since the other APAC LAN and since PAX. So, lots been happening in APAC and ANZ, and now there's lots going to be happening in the international scene as well with Brazil. Unfortunately, just gotta apologize to the stream. The voices are incredibly quiet, and there's nothing I can do about that. I've turned all the volumes up to full. Nothing I can really do.
I'll talk louder.
Actually, that's it.
I would talk louder.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna talk louder, and we'll see how that goes. I found some other settings I can do, and anyhow, not to let that get in the way of everything we're gonna talk about.
Yeah, so I guess obviously big thank you to Emzo and obviously Cabbagest from coming on, and especially to Emzo, who I think it's 1 a.m. right now. He's staying up. So yeah, as Dev said, we're going to be asking you guys a few questions today about APAC and obviously international with Brazil coming up in just a few days. And I guess I'll ask both of you, how are you guys feeling about Brazil?
I'm feeling like it's going to be pretty insane because this is the first like truly international since the invitationals. Brazil got shoehorned in at the beginning of the year, but this is like really the showcase of the whole world in a non-invitational setting.
Yeah.
What about you, Cabbagest?
Wait, okay.
What do you think about the Brazil LAN, about the Brazil finals? How do you feel
Brazil
about
finals? Well, at this time I didn't get to go, but I'm really excited about it. It's finally for us to show what we are capable to do. For my Japanese teams, my team, we got a chance to do that, and I'm so excited to see how my team is going to perform.
Yeah, I definitely know that all of the people in ANZ are really supporting ANZ and Mantis. We've really you've got people changing their Twitter banners and their Twitter profile names to be Love Heart Trophy Mantis and ANZ. People are really supporting you guys. So it's great to see not only that APAC's getting a chance, but also that APAC's getting a lot of love as well.
So I'm sort of banner. It looks really cool. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So there's a lot to talk about today, from the finals to year 3 and Operation White Noise, which is coming out really soon. There's been some recent leaks, and also just we're also going to kind of try and get to know what it's like being you guys. All the things that you guys do. Both of you are heavily involved in some really cool stuff. But as for the start, we may as well start by talking about the finals itself. Emzo, you've been around in the R6 scene for a really long time. You were casting in season 1, were you, of year 1?
Season 1, year 1 is literally all I've missed. This is actually going to be the first LAN event since then that I'm not at, because I started season 2 last year. So yeah, definitely been around for a long time. I didn't do season 1 and 2 this year, but I did 2 and 3 last year, invitationals, and 3 this year, as well as all the finals in between. So yeah, definitely been around for a little while on this. Literally the oldest one still doing it, I guess, since Panky and Pudgy are gone.
Yeah, you'd have a huge scope of what it's like from the start all the way up to now, and just what it means for all the development that we've gone through to get where we are now.
Yeah, I think the game is really grown in terms of competitive scene. Something we've talked about a lot on the desk and stuff like that is there really used to only be a few good teams. Now it's just getting crowded, to the point where EU and NA were having to give up slots for APAC to get in there. And whether APAC does good or not, the scene is just exploding. It's not just 4 regions. We're talking about I guess it would be, let's see, somewhere 7 regions, because APAC is 4 sub-regions, and that's a big deal. I think a lot of people really don't think about the fact that APAC is actually 4. So we're just getting a huge amount of teams involved, just regardless of whether or not anyone does better in any particular region this season. Going into next year with that many regions involved is just going to be insane.
I'm looking forward to it just keep on growing as well. There's scenes all over the world that aren't necessarily getting the spotlight yet.
It's also been growing in terms of like orgs. For example, we saw Rogue pick up their team last season, like right at finals. Basically, we saw Evil Geniuses pick up Continuum just before finals here. That means big things for the scene, because it means players getting decent salaries. It means coaches being able to get paid. It means the scene growing in terms of exposure, because it's going to be cross exposure to players like Counter-Strike Go players from those orgs that are going to. They're just going to promote everything they do, cross promote between the games, and that's going to bring more people into the game as well, not just from exposure but also from saying, hey, why is Evil Geniuses suddenly interested in this game, why is Rogue suddenly interested in this game, and they're going to think, maybe I should check this out, maybe I should see what's going on, and that's just going to continue to expand it, not just in the professional scene but in the player base as well.
Yeah, and it's something that kind of like one little thing makes a little bit of progress. Like we get more bigger orgs interested, and then ESL's like, oh, there's that much demand, is there? Well, we'll put even more investment into it, and then the orgs come, and then the players come, and it's just like inch by inch, everything else piles on top of it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Like, this game is not going anywhere, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like the developers have any plans on it going anywhere, because, I mean, they already said that they wanted like 50 to 100 operators coming in, and if you count number of seasons, that's years and years worth of content they're preparing to create.
Yeah, I think they definitely have a lot of ideas. The question is, are there going to be some that are just not great? I imagine there probably will. It's kind of one of those things that's going to happen. But overall, like, I think they've done a pretty good job of making almost all the DLC operators, for the most part, like pick worthy, and the ones that they haven't, they've managed to change for the like most of them. I mean, there's a couple, but out of all the DLC they've released, they've made them count, and it's starting to get actually hard to have must-pick operators. And I think it's been fantastic, especially as an analyst. It gives me something to talk about every round, to say like, oh, why are they picking this operator over that operator? And once the game's growing to like just huge numbers of operators, I mean, unless there's like a pick ban phase for operators, it's just going to get nuts to have so much to talk about.
I've heard a lot of people mention the pick ban phase. I mean, they have it, I think, in League of Legends, they have it, and so like, it's definitely an option there. I thought it was really interesting you bringing up the DLC operators bringing a lot to the game, because like there have been so much to the meta changes and everything. I'm interested to hear some specific examples about those operators, and then just kind of discuss them. So what do you think is like a good example of an operator that's really brought a lot to the meta late after release?
I think the biggest one that most people bring up was Mira, just because it made a lot more bomb sites viable, having the windows. It also made certain actual maps a lot more viable. It's even made some actually almost rotated out. That was definitely a big one that impacted a lot of it. Same a little bit with Labana in terms of opening up the hatches and stuff, made Clubhouse a bit more tricky on defense for the basement, things like that. You saw tricks like what Rogue would do, or whatever you want to call them at the time, where they would throw the impact nades up to try to take out the discs. You have certain people taking positions to shoot them. And those two operators I mentioned also tend to work against each other as well, because you have one trying to open the windows of the other. And that's probably the biggest impact. You don't see necessarily like Capital changing as much, but I would say Buck has really kind of like over time changed a lot of the meta in terms of certain bomb sites and things like that as well, without it necessarily being something that they intentionally did by introducing him as an operator, because he was much earlier. He just kind of got tweaked enough to be viable for those, and then people explored what they could do with that, and started to really change the way different maps were played, especially when you combine, again, those windows in there, and the ability to get below those, for example, on border, became a big issue.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be like, when you want to deal with, say, for example, on border, the batteried walls of Armory, you just throw a Thatcher grenade. Thatcher is like not even that useful on that objective now, because it's so much easier to take below, and then you can eliminate the mirror windows as well. So I really like all of the counter like mechanics that are in Siege and introduced from all of the operators. I'm interested to see how that's gonna like keep going, because like we've had operators like Buck. I think Valkyrie definitely as well has been like a huge impact as far as a DLC operator. Blackbeard, of course, but who wants to talk about Blackbeard?
I was the Blackbeard main like for a long time.
You're a Blackbeard main, damn it! I lost all respect for you now.
I like how it forces people to adapt, though. I personally am one of the few people that is not going to complain about it. I mean, I'm not a competitive player, to be fair, but at the same time, I think it forces people to have to do something different. I think it forces some coordination. I mean, obviously, you can't shoot Monty in the head either when he's coming in, so he's still got a face shield technically. So shield operators I know are a big contention point, but forcing people to actually use more teamwork I think is overall a good thing. It just sucks when you're in those situations where it doesn't work out. But Blackbeard overall is in a much better place now, and I think people complaining about him still probably should get good at this point, for the most part. I mean, let's be honest, he's not that hard to kill now.
I'm pretty
Yes,
sure we're
he
gonna
is
have some
not that
people
hard
in
to
the
kill
chat.
now.
Yeah. I definitely think he's in a good spot at the moment. I definitely think we're gonna have some people in the chat who are gonna be clipping what you said for any future argument. It's gonna be like, if you don't like Blackbeard, just get good. I love it.
They'll just shoot me in the head.
Quickly going over to Cabbagest now. What do you think about all of the teams that are going to be attending LAN this season?
Well, I still can't believe that my team like that made it to like those finals. Like I just like really like I've been playing Siege for like since the launch, and I've been watching like those Pro League from like season 2, year 1, and I was watching all those finals opening with like all those team banners. Then like this time, like I'm seeing like my team logo is on the like those finals like promotion videos. I was like, oh my god, like it just feels so like surprised and feels new, like that my team is like made it to. Yeah.
And we touched on this just before we went live, but you're not actually in Brazil right now, even though the rest of your team is.
Yeah, I'm not in Brazil.
Yeah.
I'm
So tell us a bit about why that happened. I mean, you're the manager / substitute for your team.
Yeah, I'm more like a substitute. Like
okay.
I've never like done any like manager experience, but
okay.
well, I think I call myself about that better.
But I mean, did they say that they'll only send 5 players over, and then is that how? It works?
Yeah. That's just what happened. So like they have choose like I'm just so like I was being chosen by like to substitute like in like before the Australia. So I mean I was fine with that decisions, but so this time like they're not ESL was like not allow like 6 players to move to Brazil, like only 5. So yeah.
I'm surprised because at the last season finals we had Falco being the 6th player for Penta, and he actually.
I think
out.
Penta flew him out. I think Penta took care of that because ESL won't pay for more than 5. I mean that's just kind of the way it is because they already have so many teams to fly out and so many people to pay for. They're not going to fly out coaches. They're not going to fly out 6 players. But as orcs continue to rise, I expect we will potentially see more subs show up.
Let's go sing here.
Quickly going back to you, Cabbagest, I think I read somewhere that were you going to be doing some casting this weekend?
Yes, it's my first time casting over like with like Japanese casters in Tokyo. Like I'm gonna be doing some like casting over the weekend.
Are you looking forward to that?
I'm really nervous about it. I mean, sometimes I don't even know honestly, sometimes I don't even know what's going on when the match is happening, and like I'm definitely not the kind of guy that can explain everything like that's going on match, but I'll try.
Yeah, you can give it.
That should be fun.
Yep.
All of us have had casting experience here. All of us started somewhere, and we've all got to where we are now just because we kept doing it and kept having fun doing it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I can have some fun by casting it.
So what you're going to be casting, is that actually like the Japanese stream of the Brazil finals?
Yep, Japanese stream of the Brazil finals.
Right, well, there you go. Anyone Japanese watching the podcast, which I very much doubt it because we're speaking in English, not in Japanese, go and watch the Japanese cast by Cabbagest himself.
Well, I actually did retweeted. So like nice. some of my mates might watching this right now. Like just want to hear me talking English.
Yeah. Hopefully, I mean we're trying to branch out as much as we can. I mean, we're called the ANZ podcast, but we want to try and cover all the international things as well, and hopefully give all the international Rainbow Six players and people just like an insight into what it's actually like being part of APAC and part of ANZ, because it's something that not a lot of people know about.
Hopefully that will change.
I really hope so, yeah. You can see how much people these days are interested in like the Brazilian, like the Latin American leagues. It's amazing. The amount of like English viewership that's transferred over to that since they got implemented into the international finals, and since they blew everyone away because they did amazingly and destroyed North America. No offense, North America.
Hey, just we're not prepared for it.
Yeah, and
Those
neither was
matches
ANZ.
That was good.
Yeah, ANZ weren't prepared for ANZ. ANZ were definitely not prepared for ANZ.
Well, it's not like ANZ haven't actually been in before because they were in the Invitationals when we had Mind Freak from Xbox. So, I mean, some of them players I believe were on the Mind Freak team. I think this time.
Yep, I believe. Two
So
of them, yeah.
there was some experience there to bring into it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, didn't make it all the way to try again. But you know, dipping your first toe in is good.
Yeah, and I definitely think that the more like bigger everything gets, the more teams in the less developed regions are just going to keep on getting like an ambition to improve, and then getting an incentive, and then just improving.
Hopefully, you guys get improved internet. I know that's a big issue for a lot of the APAC region is internet issues and things like that, and playing together. So I know it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle, but hopefully, as the game grows, might get better.
One of the other problems
hopefully.
go Cabbagest.
Oh no, it's fine. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, talking to some of the Mind Freak players, a little while back, they were talking about, not only is the internet a problem, obviously, but just the kind of distance as well, because they want to scrim really good teams to get better. And they can scrim all other ANZ teams, but if you're like number 1, number 2 team in ANZ, you want to scrim teams that are still a lot better than you. So you want to scrim, the best teams in the world. And they can't scrim North American teams without getting ping that makes it pretty much unplayable. Same with EU, same with Latin America. I remember one day my Siege for some reason set me to the Brazilian servers and I was running in with 500, 600 ping. And that's not playable. It's not too bad to play from Australia to, say, Singapore, where Team Cryptic are from, in Southeast Asia. But
Yeah.
even to Japan, it's the ping is getting, like, the distance, the sheer distances are just getting too much.
Yeah, like from like, I think it's from Australia playing in Japan server is like 150, 140 pings. Yeah, something like that.
I mean, that's doable, really.
Yeah.
Japan's
Yeah,
very central.
That's true. The recent changes to ping stuff might punish a little bit more of that, though.
Yeah. So talking about scrimming across regions, does ANZ get a chance to scrim EU teams, NA teams, AU teams, ANZ teams?
So there was actually like once we had a scrim with NA teams, like they called Ominous.
I remember Ominous. Fantastic team.
Yeah. So yeah, that was fun time. Like we woke up in the early time in the weekend, and we actually got a scrim with them. Like we played a few match, and it was fun. Like we got destroyed.
Well, hopefully that won't happen at LAN.
Yep.
Speaking of LAN, I had I had a thought about kind of like I was trying to imagine, because I went to Sydney for the LAN, but I'm from Melbourne. I only went across one state in Australia, whereas all these teams, like the majority of the teams that were at the LAN, had travelled across countries, from Singapore, from Korea, from Japan, from all over the place to get there. The ANZ teams had the home field advantage. They had the support. When I was on the casting desk, even if one of the ANZ players got like a not as good kill, they would get more applause than one of the Asian players getting a really nice kill. So there was a lot of bias, and I'm wondering, what was that like for your team while they were playing?
Well, most of the we actually the most of the players was wearing those headphones, so they can't hear anything over except the games they're playing. So we didn't really actually. I think we didn't really care about it. We were just well, it's just play our games, enjoy it, and being feels like home. Just play with your friends, just kind of that, do what practice, just kind of same stuff as usual. Sorry, my English. Just couldn't grasp the feeling of it.
You've got really good English. I noticed that as soon as I was in the backstage player area at LAN, and I saw you, and I was like, do you reckon that's someone from ANZ? I need to ask them how to pronounce all the names on their team. Can I talk to this guy?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and you were really good. You were really friendly.
No.
But we talked about what it was like being at the LAN in Australia, but going over to Brazil, you know, the Brazil fan base is like so massive and like so like really solid.
I'm really hoping like they won't get like destroyed by like those fan base like shouting for like their teams like.
Yeah.
I think like that's, I mean, those Brazil team definitely have like home advantages, more bigger than like ANZ. Yeah.
And first up, ANZ are going to be playing in the first qualifier Team Font from Brazil, who are the second seed out of Brazil, but that doesn't mean that they're like the worst team. They're actually probably one of the really strong teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough match.
It's gonna be a tough match, but I'm excited to like watch how my team perform. We are really those Shins and those 5 members like was really getting prepared for it. Like every day watching like their videos and studying like strats, like how they play out, and we're making those counter strikes. Like hopefully those practice will work against them. I really hope they do.
Yeah. Something that I'm interested to see how it kind of plays out is that like the Japanese teams and basically all of the Asian teams, it's much harder to find VODs of those of your teams playing matches compared to how easy it is to find Latin American, North American, and European VODs.
Yes, that's one of the advantages that we have right now.
Yeah.
They don't know what kind of stuff we're gonna do.
And I think that was when your team in particular was really underestimated going into the ANZ the APAC LAN. Because I was talking to Mindfreak and Corvidae, and they were hoping that Team Cryptic were going to win because they had scrimmed against Cryptic before and they knew what they were coming up against. But when ANZ won that match versus Cryptic and Corvidae had to play them, Corvidae got really nervous because they didn't know what they were in for.
Yeah, well, that was like, I mean, our match against Cryptic, that was like most intense match that I've ever saw, and I still hope that I was a part of playing that match.
It's the best match I've ever casted, best match I've ever watched either.
It's not working for me, like watching guys from just from the back, sitting on the back, watching my guy playing it, like just heart wrenching, like so close. Yeah.
You guys, it was a 5v5 with 15 seconds on the clock, and you guys were attacking Cafe top floor, and you just swing in the top windows and managed to kill 5 people in about 10 seconds. That
was like, I don't know, a miracle or
it was
a practice.
It was a miracle.
It was a miracle.
It was amazing.
Yep.
Just I guess staying on the topic of the LAN and APAC teams, Emzo, how do you think that the APAC teams actually perform at LAN?
I think there's some interesting points brought up in terms of time zones, home field advantage, things like that may factor in. I mean, in this case, ANZ weren't able to completely take advantage of their home field advantage, but traditionally the winners of the LAN often are those who are in that time zone. So like EU will generally win EU stuff, whereas the one time NA has won was Invitationals, which was in North America because it was in Canada. So a lot of times that seems to factor into it. In this case, like, so for example, that gives Brazil a pretty big advantage, but also North America as well, because that is still basically the same time zone for the most part. I mean, still part of America. So EU has actually had a pretty big disadvantage being far from home, being the other side of the equator as well. So that could be, I think, a big factor. But APAC teams, as you mentioned, also a lot less VOD footage of them, especially these teams. I mean, had it been going in with ANZ teams, there would have been a lot more VODs to see. But going in with teams that just they don't really know what to expect other than what they saw at finals. Teams like Penta, though, are still going to be preparing for that. They're still going to be studying those VODs and stuff like that. I'm not sure how well Font will, but they are a pretty strat-heavy team as well. So it's going to be a huge battle for just to even get past day one for those teams, just because they're going up against teams with such experience. I mean, we tended to write off Brazil a little bit in their first LAN finals because we thought, like they're coming into this pretty new. We didn't think they were going to do super great, but then they did fantastic. And it was like, okay, well, that gives me some hope that APAC is going to do a bit better than we expect, just because of that surprise factor. But at the same time, Brazil has a huge R6 scene, so it's not exactly a huge surprise. But also they played on LAN a lot leading up to that. So they had played on LAN like every day. or I mean every week. I'm sorry, for the Pro League. But not to mention that, like, at some point they got to the point where they were playing like 3 LANs a week because they were playing like the BR6, they were playing the Pro League, and then there was some other one going on as well. So they are very LAN experienced. Thankfully, at least APAC had the LAN finals that they did to get their feet wet in that, because I think that will make a huge difference going in, because a lot of nerves get shaken out there, and going in without LAN experience can be a big problem for team. But you never know, because I mean, you get teams that go in like ENTs that have been at every LAN and still can't seem to shake those LAN jitters. So it's really hard to say. I do hope to see at least one of them make it past day one, because I think it will be good for the growth of the game in terms of seeing these other regions able to do some damage. But it may maybe come down to like a 6-5 situation where it's just like super close in the end, and just barely manage to win just because of the conditions, just because these teams are so experienced. Black Dragon and Font are not new Brazilian teams. And INs having to go up against Font first is a really hard way to start.
And Mantis is going to be playing Penta.
Yeah, that's the second worst way to start. At least there may be some. I mean, they may be a little weaker because of time zone and lack of being able to study as much as they would like, because they're such a coach-heavy, strategy-heavy team. If they can get caught off guard, I could see that working in their favor. If they are, for example, if Pengu's able to get super tilted, and Fabian's just getting taken out early and not able to make the calls he needs to, there are some strategic things they could do to exploit Penta, but it's not going to be easy for Mantis either, because they also lack a lot of LAN experience and Pro League experience.
Yeah, I'm really interested. I feel like people are jumping to conclusions about the Mantis Penta game, and actually going into the APAC LAN, we, as the casters, we were in the hotel room a couple nights before, trying to watch as many VODs as we could of all of the matches that we were going to be casting, and I was going to be casting Mantis versus Unique Monster, so we tried to find VODs from both of those teams, and I found one video of Mantis playing, and I wasn't that impressed. I was kind of like, oh, this team's just kind of running around chasing after frags and getting incredibly greedy, and so, I mean, this isn't my opinion of Mantis as a whole, this is just what I thought at the time. And so I didn't really I thought Mindfreak were gonna dominate Mantis, but Mindfreak are a strong team, strong ANZ team, probably the strongest in ANZ to a lot of people, and they got absolutely smashed by Mantis. No joke, 10-1, I think it was 10-1, 10-2. Mantis just like came on with that aggression. It was just like, oh, you're not used to people peeking these weird angles, and you're not used to people just like seemingly throwing themselves away in order to like take on this incredibly slim chance that they're going to get 1 or 2 frags, and then getting like 3 or 4 frags, and that completely like took people by storm. And I was talking to some of the ANZ players afterwards, and they were like, oh man, they were just so aggressive, we didn't know what to do. And even now there's only 3 VODs that I know of Mantis. It's the 3 VODs from them playing at the APAC LAN, plus that one random video that I managed to find that was casted in Korean. And
I think you bring up some important points, though, for sure, about like a lot of people were complaining that watching the ANZ games sometimes felt like watching ranked matches and things like that. I mean, because it's just not what we're used to, and also sometimes there was just a little bit of maybe overconfidence and things like that, lack of LAN experience. But one of the most common complaints you hear pros making, if you say watch them stream, for example, and they're playing ranked, is like, why was he there? Why would you play that spot? Why would you do that? Like, that always like throws them off, and because they're used to their meta, and like they're going to be going into LAN playing to a meta for sure.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to see how all the metas intertwine. I mean, the EU and NA have been knowing each other's meta for quite some time now, and now Brazil, they've had a chance to be like, okay, we need to study the Brazil meta. But ANZ and APAC only have a Pro League this season. But that doesn't mean their meta hasn't been developing in, Cybergamer, ESL competitions in the past anyhow, and in ranked even. So like, I mean, it has been, there is a certain style of play, and like what a meta is a set of expectations when you go into a match. Oh, we know that they're going to put a mirror on that wall because that's what teams do. That's what everyone thinks is the best right now. And when you go against a team who's like, wait, they didn't do that. They're putting that over there, and they're running 3 of those operators, and like, it's gonna get completely like all the expectations about why was he sitting there in that corner, like you were saying, it's like completely blows teams' mind. And I reckon, like you mentioned, like from Penta, maybe if like Pengu tilts, I think that could have like a serious impact on it. I actually think that Penta will win the match, but still, I'm not.
How could you say that?
I'm gonna be cheering on Mantis just for the patriotic APAC region, the necessity of that. But like, Penta are a fantastic team. But that said, Mantis absolutely surprised me. Like, I did think Mantis were going to beat Unique Monster in the quarterfinals at APAC. I didn't think that they were going to beat Mind Freak, and they smashed Mind Freak. And then they lost to ANZ, but I mean, ANZ are amazing. Isn't that right, Cabbagest?
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's hope so.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I'm prepared to not know what's happening. I'm prepared to be surprised from basically every single matchup.
I think if Mantis start to get a strong lead just by playing super unexpected on Penta, I could almost see Penta having a mysterious technical issue and needing like a rehost all of a sudden, and like let's bring the coach over here, let's calm this down, let's figure out what we're doing wrong, kind of thing. One of those technical timeouts, just because like
they did that
there.
Wow.
I'm not saying they would do that. I'm not accusing anyone of doing that. I'm just saying like that's one of those kind of coincidental things that tends to happen when a team gets really far behind and needs a momentum shift because of being tilted or because of just really like playing a certain way and it just not working. I mean, obviously more so online, but it's just obviously I don't mean that too seriously, but it would be pretty funny to see all of a sudden they come back after that.
I mean, we do
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, Penta are a really good team at coming back in between maps as well. So, I mean, once they have a chance to talk to their coach and once they get a chance to do their little team huddle, things might turn around if they're not, if they get off to a rough start. But I guess we'll have to see. That's why we can talk about this forever, but I just want to see it happen right now.
Right.
I guess we'll move along now on to the next question. So this is sort of, I guess, going back a little, sort of backing off from the internet APAC perspective and going more onto the international perspective. Who do you guys think will actually win the LAN? Take it all.
You want to go ahead on that, Cabbage?
Well,
Eins.
Right? You're okay to be biased.
No. I mean, I don't want to be biased, but I mean, from my perspective, like this time, like Evil Genius still have a great chance to win. Like I've seen the video from like them playing in the pro leagues like this time. It's like they have like those they have improved a lot like from like the last season. And oh my god, in the BK and the Canadian, like those tags destroying everyone on team, like on a plan, like it's amazing. So I hopefully they have a good match against like Pentas, and hopefully they can take down Pentas. And my team, I don't know.
I'm trying to find the bracket, but I think if ANZ and Evil Genius win their first matches, will they be against each other in the semis?
Oh. Yeah.
I want to see that match. I want to see.
I want to see that match.
That'd be another difficult one for ANZ.
Yeah.
Please, Shin, just one. I'm not gonna send him some message that tell him to win the match, please.
Yeah, just that's the only message you need to send to your players. Just win this, please.
Well, I already sending them like a lot of message like talking about like to get the Kickstarter sign because I love Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So you talking to them a lot while you're over there, like. I mean, talking to them about getting signatures and stuff, but also like about the strats. Like, are you reviewing their VODs and talking to them or that kind of thing?
Were we practicing? Like most, actually, I'm not good at like analyzing like those bots. Like only I'm good about like, I mean, to talk about the strat with like Shin is the only guy who comes up with a strat in our team. So like. We just we most of doing is like just playing by those strats and just list up like some like few weak points or like some stuff that can change and just talk about it. And other guy sometimes doesn't come up with strat. Like he's the only guy, and he's a kind of guy that watches VODs every day. But except Shin, we just doesn't watch bots that many. Yeah.
Yeah, there'll definitely be some good bots to watch. I think overall, when it comes to the predictions for the finals, I think pretty much everyone I've asked and talked to, and I guess myself as well, kind of expects it to come down to Evil Geniuses versus Penta. And I think, I mean, I like to talk about the storyline perspective too, because I do think it's interesting when the matches themselves are more interesting based off of who's playing. And I think obviously you go from Continuum winning season 3 finals and invitationals last year, and then Penta coming in and stealing the last 2, kind of taking their mantle as Continuum, as they were at the time, didn't make it back into the finals. And you have this interesting, like, could this be them coming back to try and take that crown from Penta? Like, will Penta be defending the crown? But there's one other element that I think a lot of people also don't really talk about with that, which is BKN, aka Bacon, the coach for Evil Geniuses, also did some coaching for Penta in a previous season. So you're coming in with Evil Geniuses with a little bit of a extra edge there, coming in against Penta. Not to mention a team like Penta, while they are great at staying on top as they have done so 2 seasons in a row, it is hard to continue with that after 2 seasons of winning. There's going to be a little bit of complacency that comes in there, and Evil Geniuses are just so much more hungry to win than Penta are going to be at this point. I think a good perfect example of that is the Invitationals last time. We saw Vitality coming off their Season 3 win and then get 10-0'd by Elevate, which this was Xbox at the time. Yeah. This was the last Xbox match. But it just showed sometimes that when you already have the win and you're not as hungry to have it anymore, that sometimes someone can just straight up snatch it away like that. And I think Evil Geniuses are potentially supposed to do that. But again, we are in Brazil's home territory, and I would be surprised if any of the Brazil teams get knocked out day one, just because they've been so strong, and I think they're well prepared. Those 2 teams in particular have been 2 of the better strat heavy teams, less of the as they're called Shift W teams from Latin America this season. So it's tough to call. I mean, 4 regions.
Yeah, I like what you said about the kind of the running out, like the hunger to win, and 2 seasons is currently the record for any Rainbow Six team in the Pro League. We had Evil Geniuses or CTM win season 3 and then Invitationals, and Penta, yeah, they won the first season in year 1, but then in a row it's just season 1 and 2 this year. So they're just trying to break their record and stay on top, but you get a lot more drive when you're coming up from the underdogs rather than when you're trying to defend your position.
That says well for APAC to maybe make one team to day 2 then.
I would definitely want to see it with my bias. We talked a lot about kind of the finals going on this weekend. It is like kind of the topic now, but I thought since we've got you guys here, it'd be really interesting to kind of just like pick your brains about all the different things that you guys do. So we touched on a little bit before about, since you've been casting EMSO since year 1, season 2. But like, how did you get into casting it, like, as a whole?
It's always a funny story to tell, because I literally never planned to do any kind of casting of any kind, or like had really tried it or anything. Like, it wasn't that I had no interest in it. It's just that it never really came onto my radar, and I spent so much time like just really digging into this game. I come from a game design and development background, and I just really liked the game from a game design standpoint, and really just kept digging into it and doing a lot of analysis and setting up the Breaching Siege website and stuff to try and help other people learn it, because I just really liked learning about the game and just thinking about it a lot. And I was just, I was a member of the community, just playing with a lot of people. Like, I like to play with kind of the Pro League players back then, just for fun. Even though I'm terrible, they would still let me play with them, which is nice of them. Have pity on me. But Bloodbath was hosting these tournaments, these bathwater tournaments, that were like weekly tournaments that were just like 4 teams just battling it out, and they were pretty cool to watch. And I was kind of hanging out in I'm not sure which Discord, if it was his or another one, and I saw his co-host, the analyst, kind of bailing like a couple hours before one of the tournaments, and I was like, it'd be funny, like I should just volunteer and do it. Like, why not, right? Like, I could talk okay because I do podcasting and stuff like that, and I don't have a problem with being able to talk on the fly, and I do teaching and presenting and stuff. So like, whatever, it'd be fun. Like, I think I have the knowledge to do it or whatever. And so I jumped on and did it, and like the response was really good. And I was like, "Whoa! I didn't expect that. I expected people to be like, who's this guy? Sounds like crap." And so I was like, "All right, cool. I'll do this again if you want me to." And he's like, "Yeah, it'd be cool. Have you come back again." So after the second one, like literally just doing 2 in a row, 2 weeks, there was some the post out there asking for people to apply for second stream, because at the time it was the league format and there was too many games to be casted, so there had to be a second stream. So they needed people to be able to help fill that void. And so I was like, cool, I'll just cast from home or whatever. Like I'll like fill in for it. That'd be really neat. And so me and Blood both applied for that. I imagine some other people did as well, but we both got the yes for it, which instead of the yes for will you do second stream, it was, will you guys come to Poland? And we're just like, I did not expect that email. It was like after a week of silence, then, will you come to Poland? Like right as I'm like casting like the third week of casting anything from nothing, And so I was like, it was a hard decision, but I said yeah, and I had to pack up my entire apartment in storage. Me and my fiance had to head over within like 5 days of saying yes to that, and that was pretty hectic. We had to like do crazy stuff just to get my passport because I didn't have one at the time, because mine had expired, and so it was just a whirlwind craziness. But it went over, and it was a little rough at first because I wasn't used to the weird camera on a tripod, Cyclops just staring at you. When you're doing it, it's a little bit different, but like I think it went pretty well, and I love doing it. Like I really can't ask for a better job. I mean, I just get to watch a game I love and talk about it, and like that's the job. I mean, you can't beat that. So I'm just very happy to be part of it still, and to be part of the community with this game.
Yeah. So you said that's like, is that your primary job? Like, do you have a day job as well, or how's it?
At the moment, still trying to figure that out. It's hard when it requires being in Poland for the job, and then there's this off season right now till whenever they start, because they haven't announced when they're going to start the next season. I mean, if I go off previous assumptions, it would be around March, just after invitationals. But at the same time, like I literally don't know. I don't know if anyone has a definitive answer for that yet. So at the same time, I kind of have to make the most of my downtime. Same thing kind of happened last time because we finished up season 3, have to head home. They're not going to obviously like pay for you to live out there with nothing's going on, which is obviously very reasonable. And so trying to fill in that gap is a little difficult because you kind of, if you're planning to go back, you don't want to take anything too permanent. But if you don't take anything too permanent, it might be difficult. So it's been a little hectic to fill in the gaps, to say the least. And having to not going to Brazil this time also makes that a little more crazy. But I'm hopeful for invitationals to be coming up good and to be going out to that as well.
It seems like there are so many really good casters in the scene now, which is fantastic. Like NA and EU, all the main casters that go to Poland, like yourself. There is a lot of them now. I mean, we lost Panky, unfortunately. He was probably my favorite.
He did come back for Nordic though, because a lot of us weren't able to go because I had to say no because I was back in California and they couldn't afford to fly me out from there, and Intero was going to do it, but he couldn't because of a conflict with the timing with all the matches, the way that shook down. And so they pulled in Panky at the last minute to do it, which was fantastic to see him come back.
I need to hunt down those matches and watch them because Panky was like when I just started watching R6, I was like, wow, Panky, he's the caster that I want to see in every single cast.
That's where I learned a lot from. I kind of considered him kind of my mentor when I first started, and I think he did a fantastic job like onboarding me really well. And whenever I'm casting with new casters, I repeat a lot of what he told me, because I think he did a great job. And he had the most experience going into it by far, like 5-6 years of casting experience, whereas me, Blood, and Kicks all came in with 0.
Yeah. Well, like now, even after like losing Panky, we've got like yourself, Intero, Kicks, Bloodbath, and then like Verdi and
Milos as well.
Milos, yeah, and like I love Milos's casting. Honestly, the way he just like adds in French words that I don't like in other languages. I just don't even
he
understand.
likes knowing other languages.
I'm just like, I don't understand what he just said, but it was awesome and I love it. But yeah, and like all the Brazilian casters are now like in ANZ we've got our casters actually like Amflea and Monkey Fist, the two most long time casters, like, and Cthulhu as well. But like Amflea and Monkey Fist got to go to the Invitational, and then myself and Cthulhu also managed to get to the APAC finals. And Sky is one of our main casters as well. Like, there's so many casters in the world, and unfortunately not enough LAN finals for all of us.
We'll get there, I hope.
Hopefully. It would be really nice.
Yeah, hopefully NA will get some this time because outside of invitationals, NA doesn't have anything, whereas EU has the normal the obviously the finals are there a lot. They have all these DreamHack stuff in Nordic, and not to mention like the Spanish ones, and like they just had that R6 Cup, or the 6 Cup in France. So hopefully other regions start to look a bit more like EU. I mean, Brazil has tons as well, so it's really NA and APAC regions that are kind of lacking in LAN events.
Yeah.
Does Japan has LAN events? There was one recently, wasn't there?
Yeah, actually, we did. Like, it was our first time LAN events we lost, though.
Oh.
So, like, it happened in a month ago. Like, it was, like, October 11th, yeah. That's... Actually, I was, like, one of the members that I played in those LANs. It was fun. Like, that's definitely some experience that I had. It was huge.
Huge, really? Like, much
Yeah.
bigger than the APAC LAN?
It was bigger than the APAC LAN, so it definitely gave me those pressures. Like, yeah.
That actually brings me to a thought that Emzo, you brought up earlier about kind of the Japanese scene in general is massive. Like compared to like the ANZ scene, Japan has such a big fan base and so many teams and so many really strong teams. Like Norengo obviously came out first seed on top of you guys.
Yeah.
In the Pro League, like they're a really strong team as well. And there's so much support in Japan, and yet it's due to Japanese law, teams aren't allowed to win prize money from events.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that affect everything that you guys do and like the Japanese Rainbow Six scene as a whole?
Straight talk, like some guys in my team is like not happy about it. Like they're straight up like was frustrated about it. Like,
understandable.
so yeah, because like we can't get any prize money on we are not. I mean, we are not even getting sponsored or supported. Like, so we have like also do our jobs, while some guys like doing some part-time jobs or the schools, and some needs to like find out also job at the meantime. We're practicing, and it's not like sometimes like we think about like it's kind of we deserve something like to getting some returns or like getting some any forms of support where we playing, because like we just sometimes it doesn't have some much time to practice or like things like that always happen. So
yeah. So AINS isn't actually like almost I think every single at the moment maybe apart from playing ducks or snooker nose, every single pro league team has an org sponsoring them, I think, except AINS isn't an org, it's just a team.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's possible that there would be orgs interested in acquiring teams in the Japanese scene? I mean, you guys have beaten all of the ANZ teams. Both Corvidae and Mindfreak have orgs. You guys have beaten out all of those teams, and you're going to an international LAN in Brazil, and maybe you're going to beat out some even bigger teams over there with even bigger orgs. Do you think that it's possible that orgs are going to be interested in acquiring Japanese teams despite the laws?
Well, I hope that will happen. Like, I mean, if you can get like match orgs to support us, like it will be like huge help for us. But we also like need to like talk with like my teams. Like, even the those offers come, like we have to need to talk about it. Like, should we accept it or not? Like, because it's gonna be a huge change from like from being a like team from like orgs. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's an interesting can of worms, and I'm sure that there'd have to be all kinds of lawyers involved. To like figure out exactly how does this law actually interact in this real life setting? Because I mean, I have a very limited understanding of what the law is, but I got the impression it was to do with esports being regarded as a form of gambling.
Yes, exactly that. Like I actually I'm not informed enough to like talk about those laws, but it's actually it's some laws about gambling. It doesn't like allow players to like take any prize money.
Yeah,
and that is a thing. Like Odin knows it, but I can't quite explain it really well.
Like
Yeah.
all the time, like laws get changed because of new technologies and new things come along that make people look and be like, oh, okay, maybe we need to change the law in order to fix this up. And maybe that's possible.
If it was anything like a U.S. law, as soon as the regulators found a way to make tax money from it, they'd be all over it.
Yeah.
Like they'd be like, "Oh, this is totally legal now. Like we could just tax it really high."
Well, that's kind of what happens in Australia. Gambling is actually supported probably a little bit too much by the Australian government because they make so much money off it. So like, I guess Japan has like gone for a different system by just like making it illegal to get money off that. But I know it's interesting.
Well, I mean, they still find ways around it. You look what happened with the pachinko industry over there. They find ways around it.
Yeah. So like hopefully it will be the same for the esports in Japan. And hopefully
Yeah.
the scene gets bigger for the every games like including like Rainbow Six. Hopefully the scene gets bigger.
It's definitely tricky too because like you guys are going to be part of 3 lands now because you guys you won the APAC finals. You guys are going to be in yet another finals, and then also after that invitationals. So it's like by you guys being in 3 different lands, you guys have increased the prizes for other people in lands 3 times now essentially. So I'm sure other teams appreciate you guys winning in those because you're increasing the prize pool for them.
Yeah, that was I know like to increase other people price like it's just so I don't know how to put it out, but well, Arolina was so mad about it.
Respect to you guys though for doing as good as you are without a monetary incentive. Maybe in the end of the day, you guys will end up winning everything because you won't be focused on money. It'll just be about respect and winning, and I think you guys are showing that at least.
Yeah, that's what we're focusing for. We are not actually like really caring about the money. Like we just want to to see like where we can get to, where we can get in the end.
It's my hope that maybe Ubisoft or something can find a way to give you guys some kind of like participation bonus or something. Like I don't know what the legal ramifications are like either, but I do hope that there's some way to like someone finds a way to give you guys something.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, R6 credits. Here you go. Here's a bunch of things you could use for gambling inside.
Oh my god, I can finally buy those elite skins that I'm unable to buy.
They'll give you black ice skins so you can feel better.
Oh, that definitely makes me feel better a lot. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we can't talk too much about black ice skins or else I'll get attacked by Jeebus because there's been some I don't know if you know about this, but there's been some oh god, sorry, I'm trying to fix up the visuals.
Credit issues.
Yeah,
I'll talk about it.
Yeah, you talk about it, Sky.
So pretty much in the ANZ team scene, so we had the Go 4 Cups, and there's been a lot of dilemma around teams receiving their credits. I think it was, I don't know, some ridiculous amount of time, like a few months before teams have started to actually receive their prizes from the Go 4 Cups. And yeah, obviously Jeebus, who's the admin owner of R6ANZ, he's finally got in contact with someone from ESL or Ubisoft, I'm not sure which one, but teams are finally starting to receive their credits after like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a point of contention for a while, and I don't want to, like, we don't want to like have a go at anyone because I mean everyone's doing everything they can. Meanwhile, we have another guest, Cthulhu, our guest host, has finally arrived.
Yeah. Sorry about that, everyone. Hello again as well. Hi, Enzo. Hi, Cabbagest.
What's up?
Hello.
Yes.
So I mean, we've been going for quite a while here, but I mean, the fact like we've got such good guests tonight, we could talk forever. I feel. So, Emzo, at any point you want to go to sleep, just like send me a PM, be like, Dev, please let me go, and then we'll figure things out. Okay. But like. Just
send the gif of it's time to stop.
Yeah.
I can stop.
So, I mean, I've got my list here of ideas to talk about, and we can touch on it or not as much as we like, really. But like, I wrote down some more things to ask you, Cabbage, just kind of just about EINS in general. We touched on it that before, but like, how did EINS form, and like within the Japanese scene, like what was going on in the Japanese scene that made your team form and then get to where it is now?
Yeah, let me think about it. Like how, so like it started from Shin and some of 1Z actually, like, and he was planning to like that was like wait years ago now. Yeah, that was like years ago. No?
Yeah, it was summer of 2016 is when EINS formed.
Yeah, that's when it happens. Like I was in the other team at about that time, so we screamed a lot against Shin, and yeah, that was like he was like trying to like Shin just left some other teams like that team, his former team just got disbanded, and then like, he just tried to make some new teams and get some his fan on it and playing with it, and he was screaming a lot, so like we just kind of screamed a lot and became a really good friends, like Shin and me, and that's how he got like some other members like Suzushi and Aroe and Oden and me. Yeah, that's how he formed EINS actually.
So what kind of competitions did you play in at the time? I know that long ago ANZ didn't have Pro League. We had Cybergamer weekly tournaments, and we had some ESL tournaments. And...
So in Japan, actually, like it's Japan have an organization called JCG. It's those they actually organize a lot of events, like a lot of tournaments for the level 6 with prize money.
Oh wow! I thought that you weren't allowed to have prize money.
Well, it's only a few amounts though. Like
Okay.
it's not like excessive amount, but so like for monthly, sometimes it happens like a month, but or sometimes it happen in the 2 months in a way. But it's always happening. The tournament is always happening. So like there's a lot of teams to compete, and it's actually a huge thing. Yeah, so MDA Cup in Japan, like that was a huge tournament, and EINS won.
Yeah.
I was in the other team at that time. We got destroyed. Oh, God.
It happens.
What's with the name EINS, by the way? I don't know what the name, like the origin of the name is.
I think that's the name that Shin came up on it. Like he.
Like, does it mean something?
No, he was talking about like it's like. I think he studied like some words about it, and that was like. I think he was just talking about it. It's cool. That's about it. That's about it. We didn't have any meaning onto it. It's just like he was like, to be number one. It's cool. Like, it's cool to be like. It sounds cool.
Yeah.
And he just stick to it. That, yeah.
Is it a German word?
I think it is. Yeah.
I just googled EINS, and there's all kinds of stuff that's definitely not your team. Like, EINS is a leading solution provider for security management systems and access management platforms. I don't think that's it.
Oh my God. Well, hopefully we can get someday we can get on those Google searches by like searching EINS.
Yeah.
Or once you get picked up by an org, then you don't have to worry about your name anymore.
Oh
Even
yeah.
better. In before, EINS gets picked up by NIP.
That would be fun.
That'd be good.
Mark my words.
All right.
I love that name.
So like we haven't actually at all talked tonight about all of the stuff that's been coming out of Ubisoft announcements for the next season. We talked a little bit. We heard a little bit from Yemzo about like the operators, DLC operators. We didn't actually talk about all the speculation to do with the new ones. So how much do you guys know about, like the two of you, know about all the leaks and all the stuff that's come out and what people are thinking is what's going to be happening?
I usually try and stay away from a lot of that just because, like, I don't know what's truth and what's not. And I kind of like the excitement of finding it when everyone else does. Like, I really don't, like, other than when I did some, like, early beta testing of, like, Red Crow, I don't usually have a lot of inside info or, like, knowledge ahead of time. And, like, the leaks are kind of interesting, I suppose, but at the same time, like, they're very, like, wishy-washy and speculative on the ones that, like, are not official. And I always find, like, when you get the partial description, it usually really doesn't tell you a lot about how the operator really will be in effect. So, like, the perfect example is when we first found out about, like, the windows, right, being put on were, like, windows on reinforced walls. Like, why would
you want to
point
breach
of that?
your
Like,
own
right?
wall?
Yeah, it sounded like nonsense, and it was like, well, that doesn't sound like that'll be used. Whereas on the other hand, like, I'm sure the guy will get used, like, constantly. Like, I mean, come on, he could track footprints. But then once, like, the details emerge, like, you really start to see, like, oh, okay, I get it now. I get what they were going for. And I feel like sometimes until you see the full reveal, like, it almost doesn't make sense. and you spend so much time theorizing and hypothesizing like off the leaks or the teases that like by the time it comes out you're just like so confused. So I'm kind of just holding my reservations for hoping they really show off a lot this weekend. And like I'm expecting it to be really cool. Like honestly, like I've talked to a lot of the game designers at Ubisoft at these events, and they're all really smart guys, and they all like I think they do a fantastic job. Like this game has been was actually fairly well balanced from release, and is like the original operators are still used constantly. Like the new operators don't replace them; they accentuate them. And I expect that these will be the same. I do expect there will be mistakes eventually, though. I'm just waiting for like the operator that's just like completely worthless, or just like the idea that you're like, what were you thinking? Like that's bound to happen at some point. But overall, I expect at least one of the operators in this release will be like, oh, this is a game-changing operator. Like this operator is going to get played like till at least invitationals, assuming there's not any other like crazy stuff that affects it. But with 3 operators coming out at a time, like that's kind of to be expected.
Yeah, that's the same for me. Like last season, I was really on top of like the operators coming out and like looking at every leak. But this season, I just really haven't cared that much. I'm just sort of gonna wait till sort of the full thing comes out and it's sort of released into the game.
Just make sure you buy the season pass, right? Or please play on the test server so you can get a taste early. Like especially like I have to make sure I'm on top of knowing what these guys are going to be doing in terms of like once the leaks once the releases come out. But up until that point, it's like I don't really necessarily need to know too much, and it's more fun to be excited for the event.
Yeah. From what I've heard so far, the only leaks and big news that were coming out were about Sophia, and like the biggest rumors that seem to be like the most legitimate ones that were pulled off or whatever, is she pretty much gonna be that 2-speed combination of Ash and Ying? Which
but like
I feel
I hope not.
I hope not. Yeah. First of all, I hope not. And second of all, I feel that will make Ying, pardon me, make Ying obsolete.
Yeah.
With those grenades that she'll be launching. But at least at the very least, I'm excited about her guns.
I mean, I really hope that we get operators coming out where it's like, I'm excited because that's going to be a game changer. Like what happened with Mira. Like Mira is definitely for me like the apostle of like good DLC operator. Maybe Hibana
that
as
don't
well.
directly kill people, I think.
Exactly.
Are like what's really exciting, like windows or cameras or like these other gadgets you could place like traps. They don't directly kill people, and so they just make it much more interesting. I mean, traps maybe not as much as some of the other stuff, but overall, I mean, even Capcan's traps are non-lethal now, so it's like it's more just like playing into strategy and the interesting things that can happen instead of just being about here's a different way to kill people.
I'm definitely with you on that. Like. I'm the thing that I'm really least looking forward to is if they introduce another roam heavy, frag heavy operator on defense, because I'm really keen to see the meta. I'm not saying I endorse like the trap meta, but I definitely want to see the meta revolve more around interesting setups and interesting rotations rather than like, okay, well you grab your Ella and you grab your Bandit and you grab your Jaeger because they got the best guns, and then you just run around and kill people.
Yeah, I think the more interesting operators are the ones that can place their gadgets anywhere as opposed to being constrained, because that's where you see like different people use them in just very different ways. You see, for example, the black eyes being used in a ton of different ways. And you see people doing stuff like where they'll use the wall destruction to open up a corner of a wall to place a camera that can see between 2 rooms, or like the different spots outside and things like that. Like, I mean, obviously there's the downside of like runouts being a big thing once you could throw cameras outside and things like that. But the ability to place your gadget like in a variety of different places is going to be really interesting. I mean, personally, something I'd like to see is something that can counter hatches being opened. Because that's something that's a big problem at the moment. Mute jammers aren't really doing the trick. So maybe if there's something along those lines, that would be fantastic, just because like that starts to play more into the counterplay between the operators without killing anyone.
Yeah, and I definitely reckon some more intel gatherers on attack. Like for a long time the idea has been going around about like someone that has like a projectile camera that like shoots into a wall and then you can see on the other side of the wall. I thought that's
what a bullet does if it's unreinforced.
Well, if you want to get pedantic on me, all right. You really want to stick your eye right up to this tiny bullet hole?
Right.
That was a quality bait, though. You have to admit it.
Okay, I want to bring this up, speaking about operators and stuff, because I tried to bring this up in our esports discussion the other day, and I got completely shut down because people would instead wanted to talk about Blackbeard for some reason. But, like, I've been thinking for a long time that, like, in Rainbow Six, like, one of the strongest, like, features of an operator is speed. If you've got speed, you can, like, you're just, like, doing... You know, you can't peek around the corners, and it's like that millisecond by millisecond gives you such an advantage. And that's why 3 speeds are so preferred. And it's why operators like Tachanka and even like 1 speed operators are useful, because it's all about movement and peeking and where you are. So something I'm suggesting is the current stats are that a 2-speed operator, if you count that as moving at 100% speed, like as a standard, 3 speeds are 10% faster, and 1 speeds are about 15% slower. So I'm wondering, what if you kind of narrow that gap a little bit? You'll still be able to notice it if a 3-speed is only like 105, 107% faster than normal. But then you get your 1 speeds who are like a little bit faster. They're still loud, so they don't necessarily make good roamers, but they're a little bit faster just so they don't feel like, you know, as frustrating. And 3 speeds are no longer the annoying dodging between bullets going at 800, you know, rounds per minute. Because at the moment, for some reason, Ash can do that. Like, I don't know, it's just a thought that I've been toying with, and I'm interested to see what other people think about it.
I know a suggestion that a lot of pros have made is to switch the sound around so that 3 speeds make the most sound and 1 speeds make the least, as a way to balance things out better. Because the big thing with 3 speeds isn't just the fast peaking, which hopefully will be improved with like ping changes and things like that in terms of the way they're doing the networking, but also it's the ability to basically just teleport like Jason Voorhees behind someone else all of a sudden because you're so fast and quiet. And like, I think with the improved sound, then all of a sudden 3 speeds need to reconsider whether or not running is the right option, so they don't always sprint. Because like, I mean, obviously you watch the pros, they know how to sprint and stop and things like that, but when you really disincentivize like just sprinting around all the time, I think you start to put it in a situation where it's a little bit more fair, and team, like people that communicate well and listen well can still kind of counter it. But I don't know. I don't know if that's something that they would test, and we could see if that actually plays out. But I thought that was an interesting suggestion as well. But I also do like what you're saying about kind of closing the gap a little bit, because it's pretty high. You might need to adjust armor as well to kind of be parallel to that. But I do think the problem also is that a lot of 3 speeds have very small hitboxes, and that really exacerbates the problem.
Yeah. I never heard that suggestion before. I really like it.
I would like to ask about, well, almost the same question to Cabbagest. Like, what would be your kind of proper idea of, like, I guess the rebalance of or small reworks within the game? Like, what do you feel as a manager for ANZ will be a good choice, let's say?
Like, any change for the operators?
Like, either operators, or as in like with running. Like, what do you think about that as well, or mechanics wise? Yeah.
Well, they definitely need some change in the. Well, actually, I like the removal of the ACOG from Jaegers and the Bandit.
Yeah.
Like, actually, it was a good decisions. Well, I was a Jaeger main, and I after the removal, and my score went really bad. But well, let's not talk about it. But I think like for now it's like very balanced battle, but I think they still need some adjustment in some of the operators like Error, and they definitely really needs to add more ACOG operators, like for the Armor 3 guys, like you know, except like Echo, Zog, Duke, and I think we need more, like some of at least one.
For defenders or just in general?
For defenders, yeah.
I mean, I'm still waiting for the Capcan and Tachanka ACOG.
Capcan doesn't need it anymore. Capcan's all good now.
At least, you know, our Laws and Savior needs ACOG.
Yeah.
On the
turret.
3 speeds.
Yeah,
put it on
absolutely.
with 3 speeds.
I need that too.
I noticed this came to my, like, just made me think of it because of, I was playing a bunch of, like, I was just trying to play Fuse because I was like, Fuse has got a really interesting gadget. It doesn't get used a lot because he's the only one-speed attacker that's not a shield. And, like, that just impedes so much. So, like, I was playing Chalet and Border, you know, the classic Fuse maps, so... But even then, just, like, trying to be an entry fragger, because as soon as you take a Fuse, you're sacrificing one of your other players, whether it's, like, a Hibana, like, you can't sacrifice, like, your Hibana and your Thermite, but you got to sacrifice either a support player or a fragger, and if you want to keep your support players, then you got to sacrifice a fragger, but then you're playing a one-speed fragger, and, yeah, he's got an amazing gun, but he can't peek those corners with the same level of speed. And so trying to entry frag on Fuse is really hard. And I wondered, I mean, instead of saying, well, why don't we make Fuse a 2-speed, how about we say, well, why don't we make 3 speeds more viable? Or 1 speed, sorry, more viable.
As in,
just like
how viable do you say? As in, let's say, give them extra armor, or?
I mean more speed. Like that was where I came up with the idea about the closing the gap. But even then, I like the idea that Enzo pointed out that he'd heard before about changing the sound around, so you get punished for moving quickly from sound, but obviously if you're moving quick enough that it doesn't matter, then you can get the kill anyway. But if you're moving really slowly as a 3 armor, you're not going to get hurt. Whereas at the moment, you can hear someone from like all the way on the big pillar on Chalet, you can hear people like running around in Master Bedroom if they're sprinting around with 3 armor. It's like, it's ridiculous, the range on that noise. So
I guess the thing is, like, when it comes to defenders, like, you just put your 3 armor guys on site half the time, you know,
Yeah.
like, or they can play these really risky realms, but they play them with confidence. Whereas attackers, I think you have a good point in that the 3 armors on attack are kind of weird. Like, if they're not shield up, I mean, Fuse can bring a shield, but he's not primarily a shield operator, and so it is weird to kind of have an operator on attack because there's no sight to play. There's no.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really hard to play that slow of a speed entering into anywhere, even if it has been droned, because there's a lot of times different flanks and things like that. I feel like they almost need to like add a really good gadget to compensate for it or something to make it worthwhile. Because I mean, even with Fuse, like he's gonna make a lot of noise walking onto the ceiling that he's gonna fuse through half the time.
I can think of one operator on attack that really gets to utilize the slow speed, and one operator that's not like a shield in front. Like, okay, he is a shield. It's Blackbeard, because Blackbeard's role is sit on one angle and cut off a specific line of sight, and he's good at it, and he doesn't need to move, and that's why the fact that Blackbeard moves slowly is such a good balancing for him. Because if he could be an entry fragger running in, guns blazing and tank headshots, that'd be absolutely stupid. But because he's limited to do that, and his aim down sights time is so slow, it encourages the behavior of just sitting on a single angle, which is what his purpose is. And that's why I like Blackbeard where he is now. But that's also what I think is a good example of how slow speeds can make sense on attack. But
he also has the flexibility to switch to his deagle to move faster too.
I like that as well. It's a good mechanic.
I mean, I would say that Fuses could be called a support operator as well, as he can use his Fuse charges to, let's say, destroy the bandit charges or fend off the defenders from, let's say, the diffuser. But he does require a whole lot more preparation or a whole lot more coordination compared to, let's say, even Thatcher or operator like that. With Thatcher, you just you chuck your EMP grenade, you're good.
Yeah.
While with Fuse, if you're going for like high IQ level strats, you need to go prep. Let's say on Chalet attack for Snowmobile Garage, you slap a Fuse charge from above. Make sure it doesn't get destroyed by any of the attackers, and then weigh them out. And only when they get close, you just blast off the charge, and then pray for the best.
Of course, one of the weaknesses of Fuse is you have to take that map control. You have to take above the site, and usually that's heavily defended. Of course, you do it on the window, but you're incredibly exposed while putting it on window, and if they hear it, which it's all likely they would, they just shoot the window and easy kill, really.
I think Thermite and Thatcher are good comparisons because they both can use their gun quite well at their 2-speed. They both can be fraggers, especially once they corrected Thermite's gun. Like, he's still a good fragger, and you see a lot of good Thatcher kills in Pro League as well.
NVK.
So just because you're a support player doesn't mean you have to be like useless at fragging or slow. Like, so I think Fuse is kind of in an odd spot, and that's why we don't see him play very much.
That's one of the things I'm noticing with just the general operator balancing and new operators that are coming in. We're seeing them kind of blurring the lines between fragger and support, which I like. Like, you give Thermite flashbangs. That was great. Not only did you remove the smokes from, you know, one of the main support characters, therefore nerfing Glaz, but you give him the ability to say, all right, in this lineup we already have a Twitch, we don't, and a Thatcher, we don't need another Claymore. Let's make Thermite get stuns. He's a bit more of a fragger. One of the main, you know, Roam Hunter entry fraggers is Jackal, obviously, because his ability was designed around it, and yet he has smoke grenades. That's a support gadget. So, like, he's blend of support as well. Ying is quite heavily support, and yet her flashes are incredibly useful for an entry fragger. So, like, I really like the way that they're trying to blur the lines, yet we still have some operators which are really, like, mainly Ashe. Ashe, Sledge, Buck, probably the utility is mainly used for killing. Like, maybe Buck and Sledge a little bit less, but Ashe is like the one where you're like, oh yeah, that's an entry fragger and that's what it's for.
I mean, also the FAMAS is pretty brutal too.
Oh yeah. But then she doesn't have flashbangs, so that kind of, and her Twitch is like, Twitch doesn't have flashbangs, and she's got the, I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about Twitch with the FAMAS. Doesn't have flashbangs,
Yeah.
And she's got, like, her utility is a support utility to take out mirrors and stuff. So she's still.
Well, that's why it kind of is, and again, a blend, like you're saying, though, in fragging power as well as support utility.
I really hope that they keep following that, because it's nice when you have, maybe you bring 5 operators to the table, and instead of saying, okay, here are our 2 support, here are our 2 fraggers, and here's the other one that we wanted just because whatever, or we need an extra support, an extra fragger, you say, all right, well, we get the support utility for this component from this one, and then that one, but these guys are the entry fragging. Like, it makes it a lot more interesting and complex.
What I think they almost need at this point for the attackers too is someone that really helps get the plant down, that isn't as maybe as niche as Montaigne or Capitao, just because like I know that's always a big struggle now, especially when time management becomes more difficult with the trap meta. It becomes much harder to do that sort of thing. For example, when you can all of a sudden have like the Grismont mines thrown at you, the Echo drone, smokes, all these other ways to counter the plant. Now there's not a lot of ways to force the plant outside of say Candelas, but that's like such a niche strategy on one particular map for the most part that is not even really that popular anymore. So maybe some operators that can really help get the plant down or cover the plant or do something in that direction might be a big advantage that I'd like to see as well.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully less traps, please. Less traps.
Yeah, well, I think we're good on traps for like, maybe a season or 2 at this point.
Yeah.
A season or 2, a year or 2 maybe.
To be honest, I think I'm probably in the minority in that regard, but I full on embrace the trap meta. But probably this is just due to the fact that I'm a pub scrub.
It's good for slowing the game down. I think it's not a bad thing.
It does slow down the game a fair bit, and like to be honest, I feel that it actually made it slightly more interesting to watch, where like on the professional level, teams have to take slightly more time to just get everything set up and be more methodical in clearing out the spots rather than as just being a more rush-setted meta.
Yeah,
I think Legion's an interesting example. I mean, I say that as I'm kind of a Legion main, but I use him almost more for intel because like he does so little damage with this trap. Like outside of it, like niche situations where it could stop a plant or do like, catch someone off in a bad spot. Overall, like it does so little in terms of actual killing people in trap meta style, like and getting people killed. It's just like a intel gathering utility, and maybe there could be more traps that are just focused more on gathering information or on non-offensive uses that could be like not make people go, oh god, trap meta again.
I actually really like Legion. Legion is definitely my favorite trap operator, including like Frost, Legion, Capcan, Ella being my least favorite. I don't like her gadget at all. I don't think it's very balanced, but Legion I think is really good because, like you said, it doesn't actually do much fragging power itself, but it stops you sprinting, which is just as much of a counter to like all operators. Probably like sorry, I'm tangenting. This is what I do, but like when they announced all the trap operators, they were saying like we want to slow down the 3 speeds because that's what is so meta right now. But the thing that kind of frustrated me is what the traps did is they actually slowed down the 3 speeds, but just as much they also slowed down all the slower operators. Like it's just as much. It's even more of a counter, I would say. All of the Legion and Ella are just as much of a counter to the slower operators as it is to the faster operators. So it's not actually discriminating specifically against the 3 speeds.
No, for example, Montaigne can get him to pop his shield with some of those traps and stuff too. And like, yeah, that's a bad situation. But I do agree that it is great against the 3 speed. So an example of how I use it, for example, I play a lot of Oregon, is you know, you're playing down a basement, you throw a trap onto the middle of the tower stairs and then onto the entrance into blue, and it's like now you can stop a 3-speed rush. And even if you don't stop it, you slow it down and detect it ahead of time, because hopefully you're playing sight as Legion, not trying to roam. You're now in a situation where you can call out, hey, like this is a very frequent situation for me. I'm like calling out, hey, there's someone blue. Yeah, maybe they don't push me right away, but now we know how to control the defense for B side just off of that single trap. I didn't do any damage really because they're just gonna pull it out. They're not gonna like, oh no, now we can't do our whole attack because I stepped on this caltrop. But it's a situation where it does change drastically how you play defense without necessarily having to hurt other people all that much, and while still nerfing the 3 speeds in terms of making that early, like where they rush from spawn and try and kill you. Like nerfing those sorts of things I think are great for those kind of, especially ranked games or other games where people are just trolling like that.
I think one of my favorite mechanics of Legion is the fact that he has to pull out the thing after you step in it, because Ella, you just like, there's nothing you can do. It's not like an Echo where you just know, okay, I can mitigate the effect by not moving, and it's not like a Legion where I just have to decide when I'm going to pull it out. Maybe I get safe first. Ella, you just have to sit there and tank it. There's nothing you can do.
Most people just push even with the Legion Mine. If you watch like Pro League and stuff like that, they're like, whatever, I gotta get these kills. I don't have time to pull this out.
And it's amazing like how they play us out. They actually like they can win the firefights even though like there's some needles stuck in their feet.
Maybe if it was more disorienting like Echo or the Grizz mods, maybe people wouldn't. But it's a situation where like I think they found a good balance with it.
I feel that even within the Pro League, at least what I believe I saw, is even with the Grismont lines, if the player does know where the defender could be potentially, he would still push, even knowing that there's the Grismont mine that he can't directly destroy. He would push with just a simple pre-fire to just pause that run out from, let's say, Ella, who will be holding that angle, and then either get the kill or at the very least scare the attacker off until the moment the effect of the Grismont mine will wear off.
Personally, in that case, I think it's kind of hard to do when you have 50 bullets as well, because you can pre-fire that before they can pre-fire you.
Yeah, it's rather, with Ella, it's more of a, I guess, magazine size balance rather than just trying to balance her gadget. Because I feel that her gadget is at the just right moment.
Yeah, that's not really the hard part. It's definitely the magazine size at the moment, and even the recoil changes weren't too drastic. Well, the thing is that the first, there's such a high fire rate that even the first 3 bullets land reasonably close together. So even if you're hit them just slightly below, you're gonna get the headshot anyway because that magazine's so massive and the recoil's so massive. Oh, sorry, the recoil isn't that massive for the first few bullets. I just wanted to quickly, before we wrap up tonight, touch a little bit on Year 3, kind of hopefully get a little bit of an optimistic take on what things are going to happen, like Year 3 and beyond, really, because I don't see Siege going anywhere anytime soon. I think that Ubisoft aren't going to announce next week, oh, we've got another one, it's called Rainbow Six something else. It's
Rainbow 7?
Rainbow 7. Oh, no, please no. What do you guys think about Year 3? I mean, Irons are going to come home from Brazil. How, whatever the result is, they're going to come home hungry for more, and for next year and next season and the season after that.
Yeah, I'm gonna look forward to it, and hopefully they'll bring some out more the gameplay wise. They also need to sort out to get the rank auto beta. That's my opinion. But yeah, they did need to implement some sort of a new system in the ranked, and the thing is we have less pop players in the ranked over here, in Japan, we can't even solo queues, and we can't get enough.
You guys got to play the R6ANZ and stuff like that.
We have been, actually.
Yeah,
we should plug that, really.
Yeah, I played nothing but that. I don't even want to touch ranked.
that's nice. I'm gonna try it.
I'm gonna put a link in the chat right now. because R6TM is a fantastic thing. Ems, are you one of those ones who started that, were you?
So no, Kix and Trinity started it, coming over, I think a little bit from experience with messing with Rainbow Find, but I mean, I try and help out with it, but it was definitely Kix kind of leading the charge on that. But I think they've done a fantastic job with it, and I definitely played a lot and try and help out here and there as a staff member as well. But it is a fantastic alternative to scrims, to ranked, to all that stuff in terms of just being a lot more fun while still being competitive.
I certainly enjoyed a bit of it. I would really like it to be, because like one of the reasons I've been playing ranked instead of that a lot of the time is because I have 2 or 3 people at least that I've said I want to play with them on their team. And at the moment, the current system with R6TM,
You just gotta get to ranked B, man.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I'm not that good. I believe I've.
You can pick teams.
I'm pretty sure I've lost every single match, maybe aside from one. But I'm just gonna do the typical thing and blame that on my teammates. You know, like Sky.
Yeah,
Sky's always letting me down.
You need the other Sky. You need guys.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun with R6TM. It's pretty fun sort of mode. I'm sort of surprised as well, like how long it's taken people to sort of catch on to that. Obviously, we had Tobo in the ANZ scene. He made his own sort of version of it, but you know, that was a lot of fun. I guess it wasn't sort of widespread to the whole world. It was more just a closed thing to the few people that knew about it. And now, obviously, with Kickstar, Emzo, Trinity, bringing this, and obviously Elo is also another big thing that people sort of, I guess, motivates them.
It's not even really Elo, which is funny. It's just a good point scoring system.
Yeah, it's sort of, I guess, something to work for rather than just a pug where you get nothing for it. And I think they said there may be prizes in the future or something. So there's certainly a lot to look forward to with the R6TM.
Well, if they can get some donators, they might be able to get some R6 credit giveaways. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say a lot, but I know they have big plans for the future, and I would definitely keep my eye on it.
Well,
same thing I could say for this game as well. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of specifics, but based off things I've heard, I would expect big things for year 3.
yeah, every time there's a new event, like a big LAN event, I just get so excited because it's always a one-up of the previous one. Like, I think it was season 1. We had this year we had Brazil, the Latin American teams for the first time. That was season 1 or season 2?
That was season 1 of this
Season
year. I mean, we had them. We had Font basically
At the Invitationals.
but yeah.
But like we had the Invitationals, which was a massive step up from year 1, and then we had, you know, the Brazilian teams getting their spot in the Pro League, just like any other EU or NA team. And then we have the APAC Pro League, and you know, we had our own separate LAN, and now we've got the biggest kind of LAN event aside from the Invitationals that we've ever had. And then we're going to have Invitationals next year, which is just going to be absolutely bonkers massive. And every time something is just one up from the previous thing, and like the production quality is amazing. Like the production quality at the APAC LAN, despite being fairly small and despite being in the smallest region, was massive, and it was just so great, and I'm so excited for what's happening.
Yeah, I think it's at an accelerated pace. I honestly didn't even see APAC coming in until at least next year, and the fact that they got put in so fast just speaks to how dedicated everyone is to just growing this like super quickly, and bigger orgs getting involved, like Evil Geniuses. Like everyone's it's like a stock market where everyone's just waiting for the right signals, right? To say like, oh wait, maybe I should get into this. And I think Rogue and Evil Genius getting in, for example, will signal to a lot of other people that this is serious, that like we should get in on this now, like, because this is gonna blow up like big time 2018.
Definitely.
Feels bad
Yeah.
for CSGO. They're gonna start eating their lunch.
Don't care about CSGO, we got this. Well, I think that's where we're going to leave it, guys. Thank you very much to all the viewers for joining us. Thank you very much to the co-hosts. We've got myself, I'm Dev Marta, Sky on this side, and then Cthulhu, who joined us for the end, and our fantastic honored guests. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming on. This means so much to us.
Thanks for having me, man. It's fun.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Like it was a lot of fun talking. Yeah.
It's the first time we've had like international names in our podcast, and I'm really excited. Everything's going. The R6 scene is going. All the regions are growing, and so are we. The R6ANZ podcast, we're growing, and I'm really excited. Like we've got some more guests lined up for the future, and just like super stoked for everything that's gonna happen.
I want to give a lot of respect to you guys at the ANZ scene and stuff because I've been following and helping you guys occasionally, like going a bit back earlier this year and stuff like that, and I've really seen tremendous growth and a lot of effort put in by you guys, and it's like it's I hope it pays off like it has been because I think you guys do a fantastic job with what you have.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we're gonna cut to the intro outro video thing. So thanks everyone for watching, and come back next week for another episode.
See you guys.
See ya.
Peace.